Hello everyone and welcome to Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So get ready for an episode where the Doctor becomes a time traveler that even Bill and Ted would respect.
And I've also introduced the word dude several centuries early.
Excellent!
Hello Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And as we said, this is Who Cares.
And it's back!
Yes, finally, after an entire year of waiting, which is much better than it had been in previous years, in fairness.
Yeah.
The Doctor is back for Series 9. Him and Clara and Missy
In
are
The
back.
Magician's Apprentice.
Yes.
And it had hardly any magic.
Surprisingly.
Shocker.
The prequel had more magic, and actually...
Isn't that weird?
we're going to talk about the prequel a little bit before we
Yep.
talk about the actual episode.
Because the prequel actually ties in very quickly in the first episode, which doesn't usually happen. Usually it's like kind of extra stuff that kind of sets the frame, but this is a very true prequel in all the sense.
This is actually my favorite, I think, Doctor Who minisode they've ever done because it definitely adds to the episode.
Yeah.
It gives you information that helps you understand the characters and the situation. However, if you didn't see it, everything still works on its own.
Yeah.
It's just a nice little bonus.
It just lets you in on like one joke.
Yeah, it just expands the universe a little bit.
And it kind of
makes
makes
it seem
you
realer.
Yeah.
So in the minisode, we have the Doctor trying to meditate, and he has interactions with this guy named Bors. I like the guy who plays Bors a lot.
Yeah.
He's just sort of a silly, one-off, almost companion-type character who seems to like the Doctor, even though it seems like they're coming from very different places. He's a warrior, the Doctor's very much not.
I also like that while he is like he's pretty close to a Viking, not quite a Viking, but he's clearly a England from the 1100s warrior guy, and usually they're very gruff and let's smash everything, but he's kind of just like, dude, what are you doing the whole time? He's very, very cool.
Interestingly, prop reuse in this also. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or if this is just a budgetary thing. The cup that he's drinking water out of is the same chalice that he used in the minisode Night of the Doctor, in which he becomes the War Doctor. So it's from Karn, and there was a prequel to this prequel in which he was on Karn right before this. So I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I do think that's a nice little touch if it was intended to be that.
Yeah, except he's not changing in this episode,
No,
so
it's just
no
water.
unspoilered.
He's just like, oh, here's a cup.
Yeah.
You can tell from the minisode almost right away that the Doctor's personality has changed a little bit, which is touched on in the episode, and we'll talk about that when we get to the episode itself. But immediately you can see he's still Capaldi. He's still the 12th Doctor.
Absolutely.
But he's a little more frantic. He's a little bit more like a mad scientist.
He's got a little bit, it's like a little bit of Matt Smith is peeking through, but not a lot. Just enough to kind of make him familiar.
Yeah, and there's more of that in the actual episode, but again, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, the Doctor just has a thing where it's a prelude to the actual episode, and he just says, I was on a battlefield a long time ago. And that preludes into the actual first episode.
So the first shot we get of the new episode is on that battlefield that he is talking about, and this is one of the best stingers that they've done in a really long time, in my opinion. You go on the battlefield and there's stuff happening, and then remember those hands that we saw coming up out of the ground? We thought maybe it's a zombie episode.
Sure.
We were wrong, but they're still really cool. Those are hand mines, and that's the most Doctor Who mine I can ever think of. Like,
I heard
great.
that, and I'm like, I don't like puns. I'm not a pun person, but man, all right, I'll take it. That
Not
one,
a pun? How's that a pun?
landmines, hand mines.
Oh, I see. I guess, but it's just kind of, it's quirky. It's quirky Doctor Who.
It is
it's
quirky,
fun.
but there's no way Stephen
think
Moffat didn't think I'm so clever.
Maybe. I
Hand
hope
mines.
not. I hope he didn't. I hope that was an accident. He's like, fuck. Can't stop now. It was a cool shot. And we saw us sort of teasing at this scene in some of the sneak peek stuff. We have these really dirty scenes. And the Doctor's there, and this little boy's there, and he's very scared, and he's like, help me, and he throws him the sonic screwdriver, and you immediately assume this is going to be resolved, and then he's going to go do Doctor things. No, better. Doctor kind of has a little speech, and he's like, hey, what's your name? Tell me the name of the boy that's going to survive today, because you only have a 1 in 1,000 chance of living, blah, blah, blah. Does a really good Doctor speech, and then the boy goes, my name is Davros.
And then the theme song. This is a good scene. There were rumors that Davros was returning like months ago. Something must have leaked from filming or something.
What a good way to reveal it, though.
Overall, I thought it was good. That was a very good stinger. I kind of felt I knew it was Davros the minute the Doctor said, survival is a choice. You have to choose to survive today. And that's a very Davros line. It makes me think that actions the Doctor are taking now and may take in the following episode are going to push Davros towards what he becomes in the future. He's teaching him essentially survival is a thing you need to do. It's a choice, and that's what Davros was doing by creating the Daleks.
He made a choice.
He was making people survive by creating this race of mutant weird things.
Yeah, and it seems like it's going to be a theme, at least through these first 2 episodes, but just judging on what we've seen from the sneak peeks and also the titles of the episodes, it seems like maybe we're going to be revisiting Doctor things. They're also going to revisit like why Capaldi's face is the way it is. Obviously Missy is involved, and we're probably going to get a Gallifrey thing going on. So it seems like Doctor's past is going to be brought up a lot this year.
Especially the beginning of this episode, this kind of transitions right after actually. Yeah. We have Colony Sarf, as he's called, and if you know, he's the guy with the lines on his face.
He's a snake guy.
He's a snake guy.
That's a snake guy.
I did want to talk about his character a little bit. I do like the design. I think the design is very cool, the idea that it's a dude made up of a bunch of snakes.
Yeah, and the first time you actually see it uncoil, like before he's a snake, it looks cool, and you're like, oh, that's neat. And then he pops out of his robe, and he's just a snake.
Yeah,
so it was kind of weird.
I like the idea of him being a snake and the face being coiled up snakes, but the design itself of him just being like a central human flesh-toned snake with a bunch of snakes on him, I feel like that could have been done a little bit better.
Like a man face and sort of like arms or something would have been all right, but I do like that though. Since he's a colony of snakes. And Sarf, you said, was Norse for snake or something?
Something like Welsh or something.
Welsh, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's all the same. But I do like that they're a democracy and they voted on decisions during the episode. I think one specifically. So that was cool. He's a cool kind of guy. I don't think we're going to see him after next episode.
I think he's going to be a character that we all say, wasn't that kind of neat? What a wasted character, because it doesn't seem like whole lot's going to happen with him.
I do like that at least they're putting effort into the tertiary characters, because last season, all the cool extra characters were just humans, it seemed.
Yeah. We also see a lot of this looking at the Doctor's past and the settings that we have. We have him going to Karn. Mm-hmm. We have the return of the lady from, the last time we saw Karn, which was the 8th Doctor becoming the War Doctor.
Goes to the Shadow Proclamation, which is a very Tennant thing.
Yeah, very interesting that they had the leader of the Shadow Proclamation was the same actress. I'm glad they brought her back. It's cool that we now are seeing more continuity included in Doctor Who, and certainly everything's, of course it's in the same continuity, but between Tennant and Smith, it seems like there's
a little bit of a break.
There's a hard break.
It was kind of intentional, though. The way Smith was designed was that so people could start fresh at Smith.
Sure.
So, but I like that they're tying it back around because once it's wound nice and tight and makes a really cohesive narrative, you can do really cool things with time travel.
Yeah.
And so I think this is another good way to do that.
Missy's character, we see her next, and her character is a little bit better in this episode. We've talked about how we're kind of getting a little tired of Clara, and last season I thought the way she was utilized wasn't particularly interesting, at least not as far as how Doctor Who episodes are concerned.
I liked her in this episode.
I liked her too. I liked the idea that she's working with UNIT. Of course she would work with UNIT. That makes total sense.
I really like the idea that she had the situation handled almost immediately. Like, she looked like she was under control, because what happens is Missy pretty much stops planes in the sky, and no one knows why, and eventually you find out it's Missy. But during that scene, she's in her classroom, and she just kind of, notices a plane, and most people would freak out and be like, what's happening? But she's, like, been around a while, and so she just circles it. She tells the students to look it up on Twitter, finds out, unit calls, and she's like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then she goes and does her job. It's such a much better character. She's not, woe is me, I gotta date Danny sort of shit going on.
No. I like that the character now seems to have more agency. She's not just along for the ride. She's not just... And certainly we saw some of that last season, of course, in Flatline and stuff like that. But I think here it makes more sense, and I like it. I also like that she has the motorcycle that Matt Smith's doctor gave her. You notice that? Same motorcycle. That's kind of a neat continuity nod. That, of course, though, leads to probably the best part of the episode.
Easily. Missy's there, and she's... God, just a great speech. The only thing I didn't like about her appearance was she has a 3D head moment, and it shoots out of the screen, and they're like, it must be a psychic compression. There's no reason to put that in.
There was no reason to put that. It was just silly.
Which is... Missy stuff, I get a little bit of a pass because silliness is kind of her thing.
Yeah.
So, and that seems like an eccentricity that she would go through just to do it. So I buy it, but at the same time, I'm like, it was lame.
It was. I thought it was weird. I don't know how I felt about it. I could have gone without it, but it wasn't as bad
It didn't
as
take away from anything.
last season, for instance. A moment similar to that when when Madame Vostra knocked out the doctor,
Boing.
and there was like a boing sound effect.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I'll take the holographic head over that.
I
How
will
about
too.
that? If there's gonna be one silly kind of out of place moment in an episode, this one was the better one of that.
Do you put that over or under the Danny somersault though?
They're even. I'll say it's even.
Okay. But Missy's great, and she's very confident as always. And it's like, basically, hey, you're gonna have to come here and bring 8 snipers, 3 for each heart, some for my brainstem, because you're gonna want to kill me immediately if something goes wrong. And they're like, why would we bring snipers?
I feel like Missy in this episode especially has become. You can see why the Master is the equal of the Doctor. I felt like John Sims' Master, for instance, which was David Tennant. He was nuts, and so was Missy, obviously, maybe even more so.
Right, but he was out of control nuts, and she's in control nuts.
I felt like, I think he lacked a little bit of what makes the Doctor impressive. Yeah. He never felt like he was in control of the situation. He felt lucky.
He was pressing a lot.
He felt like he used strength and luck a lot, whereas Missy now feels a lot more like the antithesis of the Doctor.
Yeah, she's pretty much Doctor Whoing Unit right there, because that's what he would do to, say, the Cybermen.
Sure.
He would sit there and be like, okay, bring all you got, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit later when some plot points happen, but she and the Doctor feel very much on par, and you can see why they're adversaries and friends in this episode.
I love it.
So, of course, her and Clara sit down to talk. They have a cool conversation. I like that they sort of clarify the Doctor and the Master's relationship. Mm-hmm. They're friends. I don't know how much of this is from classic Doctor Who. I've seen some Master-Doctor interactions from the past. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is something fairly new or if it's something that's been around and hinted at for a long time, but I do like that they're friends. I know they talked about it a little bit in the David Tennant years, but here it seems a little more believable, whereas the Sim Master, he just seemed like a crazy person. I think
it almost felt like he pitied the Master so much that he's like, and he was also lonely in being the last Time Lord.
Yeah.
And kind of like holding on to the only other person he had. Whereas this, it seems like it's not just born out of convenience.
No, I could see the Doctor being
they hang out.
If Missy wasn't a murderer, if she was just crazy, I could see him being super excited about it. Like, oh, look how great she is. She's so weird. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Also, we kind of skipped over this because they did. Missy is just alive and they don't even bring it up why. They just say, yep, I'm alive, no big deal, whatever, let's move on.
They address that in the absolute best way they possibly could.
They don't have to write that back at all.
She makes a joke about it and that's it, and it was perfect. And I was like, good for Moffat. I'm glad he didn't feel the need to address it, but he still brought it up because that's funny. Yeah,
and if you remember the short, like 40-second teaser that they had, they referenced the Doctor's last will and testament, the little disc.
Yeah.
This is brought back into the fold right now.
That's also where we talk about them being best friends. I like that Clara goes out to reach it because she expects it's for her, and the Master's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And she gets shocked.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's for me.
Yeah.
And Clara's a little offended.
Yeah. I like that the Master compares Clara to a dog with an old couple walking a dog. I'm like, that's about
that
right.
Couple, you're the puppy. That's cute, man. That's great.
My favorite part about this scene, though, is probably Clara goes, why do you care about the Doctor all of a sudden? Are you a good guy? And she like flips her shit and goes like, she disintegrates one of the unit people immediately and goes, I am not a good guy, in sort of a weird accent because she changes her accent all the time
just
now.
For no reason. And then she kills another one's like, what are you gonna do, basically? And then so it gets to the point where Clara's like, okay, fuck off, let's do this, let's work together. And they start to work together and find the Doctor through a series of random, computer things. Doesn't matter.
I like that I don't know if this is intentional or not. If you'll remember Matt Smith, the first episode with this version of Clara, she got all that computer tech knowledge put in her head. Yeah. It was never addressed again. So I'm hoping her being on that computer was supposed to be like,
she's done stuff like that.
Like when,
she was pretty savvy with the whole broken Dalek thing.
Broken down.
She was in there and she's like, oh, these are memories, and if I do this and then I do that, it seemed like she had some sort of knowledge about the inner workings of things.
Maybe.
It didn't seem as lucky as I think they wrote it.
Maybe. I guess I didn't. I thought that was just supposed to be taken away as she was like visually looking at it and assessed it to be as such, but I don't know.
Maybe both.
Another great joke, they're talking about looking for the Doctor now, and they're searching historical records and stuff, and they find him in 3 different versions of Atlantis,
Yeah,
which
that
is
was
a
good.
great callback to Doctor Who's wonky continuity and how there have been several iterations of Atlantis.
Yep. So they end up in 1100s England in Essex, actually, and I actually worked with a lady from Essex once, and she was crazy. So I'm going to assume everyone from Essex is crazy. Bors is standing there with an axe, and there's a crowd around him, and they're cheering, and it looks like an arena fight. And you see that the Doctor's going to be coming through the hallway in a second, and Missy and Clara are up on the top balcony kind of looking down and seeing what's going to happen. And then the best goddamn Doctor Who intro in probably the history of the show.
This is the most self-indulgent fucking thing I think I've ever seen.
So
and
great.
It's beautiful. I'm assuming you've seen the episode, so you know he comes out playing guitar and riding a tank.
That you can't make that up.
No.
Comes out riding a tank while playing hot licks on a guitar.
I think Peter Capaldi looked like he was having the most fun he's ever had
Yeah,
filming
definitely.
anything during the scene. And
He's
I
actually
don't
pretty
blame
good
him.
at guitar.
Yeah, he was in a band with that dude from the late night show. What's his name?
Craig Ferguson?
Yeah, he was in a band with
Oh,
Craig
it's because they both
Ferguson.
have the same accent, so they all know each
Yeah.
other.
But that was pretty great. My favorite part of that had to be when he saw Missy and Clara showed up. He started playing Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That was good. It was weird to me that they were like, that Clara said, he can see us? Like, it didn't seem like they were that far away.
Yeah,
that was a weird line. But,
I don't know.
But beyond that...
It seems like maybe they wrote that before they scouted the location and didn't know exactly how it was going to be framed.
I suppose.
You know what I mean?
It seemed, the way they shot it made it seem like they were closer and well lit.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
Maybe Clara's just dumb. Who knows?
Maybe. She's clearly not smart.
And then she comes and talks to the Doctor, and here we have more the notable character changes.
Yeah,
she
this
goes
was actually really important.
she goes like, "Why are you doing this? This doesn't seem like you at all." And he hugs her. And if you know last season, he was so against hugs. He brings up the line again, "A hug is a great way to hide your face."
Yeah.
And she says, "This is nothing like you." What I love that he says here, he says, "I spent all day yesterday in a bow tie and the day before a long scarf. If this is going to be my last party, all of me is invited." I like that if this is the only time they talk about his character change, because he's clearly gone from being entirely gruff and closed off. He's
Yeah.
opened up a bit and he's willing to have this fun. If that's all they address, that's fine. The Doctor's becoming more in touch with who he is as a person. He's more open to who he used to be and embraces it a bit more, and that's cool.
I also think that kind of loosens the reins as far as what the writers have to do with a Doctor. And I think that was kind of to the detriment of last season, where they're like, okay, we're going to have a gruff Doctor. And they did it, and he did well, but the episodes seemed to suffer for it.
I think so.
But this way, they can be like, okay, well, he can be most of the Doctor things, just kind of like rein it in a bit, because it's still Capaldi. But so it's like, it's not Matt Smith, it's not Tennant, and it's not Eccleston. It's Capaldi, but all those as well.
Sure.
And I think that's important.
I think so, too. Missy shows up. The Doctor seems pretty happy to see her again.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I get that they're now writing towards their friends, and he likes to see her now, even
Well, he
if
liked to see the Master before anyway, just usually the circumstances were not great.
Yeah, here I guess it's fairly neutral. She hasn't done anything, I guess, that lately. I mean, I don't know how long ago the Danny Cyberman thing was from his perspective.
At least it wasn't her fault Danny died.
Well, no, I mean, indirectly, it was.
Well, he got hit by a car.
Oh, yeah,
It was
I
her
guess
fault
you're right.
that he
He
turned
came-
into a Cyberman.
That's true, I guess. So I guess maybe the Doctor is not as mad at her for whatever reason. I don't know. We now get a flashback again of the beginning when the Doctor found out that it was Davros as a child, and we find the rest of the scene. He leaves.
Yeah.
He leaves the kid there.
Which is great.
To maybe die, which is interesting. This episode is a sequel to Genesis of the Daleks. If you don't know what Genesis of the Daleks was, it was one of the most famous, maybe Doctor Who episodes ever.
Doctor 4, right?
Yeah, Fourth Doctor. Definitely, probably one of the most famous Dalek stories ever, in which the Doctor meets Davros and finds himself at the beginning of when the Daleks are being created. And he has a choice. He has 2 wires in his hands. And actually, there's a scene from Genesis of the Daleks in this episode. They show it, literally.
They do, yeah.
He has 2 wires in his hands, and he has the choice. If I touch these 2 wires together, it's going to cause like an explosion, and all the Daleks are going to die. And so will Davros, and I'll end it, and the Daleks will have never escaped and gotten across the galaxy and stuff.
Right.
But he chooses not to, and he has a speech, and he says, if there was a young child that you knew would grow up to kill millions and millions and maybe even billions of people, does any one man have the ability to kill that child? Should they have the right?
All right, it's kind of the baby Hitler question.
Yeah, but in Genesis of the Daleks, it's interesting. He says, I don't have that right, and he puts the things down.
And now he switches that.
In this episode, hundreds of
Indirectly.
years later, he basically says, no, now I have the right, and he fucking leaves. And that's so interesting to me.
At least this time it was indirect, though.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the Doctor would actually ever kill anyone directly, like, with his hands.
Maybe not.
But I don't think he's not capable. I just think he would always talk himself out of it. How about that?
It's so interesting. And then the Doctor gets captured. Colony Sarf comes, and that's when you finally see his full snaky form.
Thing. It's
little
lame.
disappointing, but
again, the
whatever.
effect is cool when he splits apart, but the end result is just lackluster.
Yeah. He decides to go with him. He has a little doctory speech.
Clara and Missy both want to go with him, and he protests, but obviously they don't give a shit, and they go, and they're all kind of locked in this room together.
Bors is then revealed to have been turned into one of those Dalek, people with the stalk coming out of their head.
Yeah.
This is one of my...
You hate those.
I know. This is one of my least favorite things that Moffat has introduced, and I don't hate Moffat by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that that's a terrible thing to add to the Dalek mythos. Arguably, there was something similar in the Dalek invasion of Earth. They had people that they kind of put helmets on that was similar.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the Cybermen also do a similar thing where they kind of have the earbuds in that Martha story.
That only happened like once, though.
I know, I get it. I don't like it, but I don't hate it. It's just kind of one of those. Yeah, but the Daleks are goofy enough for me to get over it. But yeah, I understand. I totally get it. And if he hadn't added that, I'd have been just fine. But that's how they write in how they get the TARDIS to the Daleks.
I know.
So I guess if you're gonna do it, just do it and rip that Band-Aid off real quick.
Yeah.
And they do. It's like a 30-second shot.
They go to a space station, allegedly, where Davros is. The Doctor and Missy and Clara are locked up. The Doctor gets taken away, and he says one thing to Missy, and he says, gravity, and she goes, I know, like really obviously.
It was really great, and I was watching behind you, and you go, huh? Kind of with your head. And then I remember doing the same thing, because I had watched it the second time with you, alone the first time. And I went, the first part of me goes, huh, I wonder what that is. And the second part of me goes, oh, Doctor knows the gravity's wonky, she must too. I mean,
I know.
Because Matt Smith did that kind of a lot.
That's what I like. It makes me buy the friendship a little bit, because it makes me go, the Doctor spends so much of his time with humans and other aliens. Time Lords are just on it seems like they're on such another level perceptually, like they can just notice more things. They're just smarter. They're more evolved, whatever you want to call it.
And Missy has a really good talk about friendship with Clara in that same vein, where she's like, you humans always think of stuff in such reproductive, like, why can't a friendship just be that?
Okay.
Why can't it be like this other level? Like, we have a connection that's spans centuries. You can't even fathom that.
I know.
Like, that's why we're best friends and you are not. That's why you're the puppy.
But yeah, I just love that they're both aware of this, and the Doctor is used to telling her that, and she's like, I know, like, obviously, as if it's just like, yeah, that's just like...
You don't have to guide me, too. I'm not a human.
Like, I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm not a fucking human.
Yeah.
I'm Missy. I know what's going on. That was a good way of doing that.
Yeah. So basically, the gravity messed up, and it's not artificial.
Not artificial. This was a little bit of a plot contrivance that I went, okay, Moffat, I'll take this, but this is silly. They better have I hope they have an explanation for this in the next episode, otherwise it's just...
You're talking about the invisibility?
Yeah.
I don't think that's such a bad thing, because it's the Daleks, and so I assume they have that kind of shit.
They exit the space station, and it's not a space station. The entire planet is invisible, and it becomes visible, and they realize it's Skaro. The Daleks have rebuilt Skaro. Which is interesting, because if you remember, in Asylum of the Daleks...
Oh.
They were on Skaro, not the planet they were on, because that was a separate planet. The Asylum was on a different planet. Yeah. But at the beginning of that episode, the Doctor is on Skaro and in the ruins of an old Dalek city. So Skaro was already a thing. I don't know why they're surprised.
The city, is the city also called Skaro? Because the city was the important part, because Missy was really upset that the city was there,
Maybe.
Which means that they went back to Skaro.
It's interesting to me that they treated, like, Skaro was still a thing, as if it's this big revelation when the Doctor was just there a couple hundred years ago.
Maybe
or
it's because
like
of the Time War implications that it wouldn't be. I don't know. And because it had been invisible, so maybe they thought it disappeared in the Time War and was destroyed.
I don't know.
Anyways, I get that why you would be like, they hit a whole planet and made it invisible. But they kind of have a good line about it, is when you sit on the spectrum for a little bit and you're there, you can kind of start seeing it.
It just seemed like
It's so Doctor Who, though. That's so Doctor Who.
It is, but it's just like, we just need to make it a surprise that it's Skaro. How do we do that? What if the planet's invisible? How is a planet invisible? Why? What?
Why does that matter? Why does he have a blue box that travels through time, Hugo?
It's not like, how did they do it science-wise? Just like, why would you do that? Like,
Because
why
it's
is that to
Skaro.
benefit? That, I don't know.
Because you gotta hide it.
But why? Why would you have to
Because
hide
you're
it?
Daleks. Why wouldn't you have to hide it?
Fuck it, sure, whatever you say, man. So then Daleks do show up.
Yeah.
And there's Daleks from all different eras. You have the original 1960s
That was cool.
Daleks.
That was very cool.
You have, I think I saw some 80s Daleks. You had a special weapons Dalek, which you haven't, I don't think they've been in New
The red
Who yet.
one?
The big one with just the big cannon on it.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe we saw one briefly in Matt Smith's last episode, but you didn't really see it in
and
action.
then, obviously, the new regular Daleks.
Yeah, they had a big black Dalek that looked a little bit like Dalek Sec. If you remember, Dalek Sec was there during David Tennant's
He blew
era.
up, though, right?
He became the human Dalek and then was killed.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is supposed to be
Before that?
either before that, or if it's just a new Dalek that's taken the same leadership role. I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe they'll address
It's
it.
probably just we had it. And
Probably.
let's throw it in this
No,
cool
you're-
scene with
you're-
all the Daleks.
You're probably right. I'm just wondering if there's any sort of intention behind it.
Yeah.
But
It was neat, though. And then we have a really cool discussion between the Doctor and Davros, kind of about Davros remembers that the Doctor fucking abandoned him to die.
yeah, they brought back the same guy to play Davros, who was in Journey's End.
Did a great job,
Oh
too.
yeah, he did a good job.
And the makeup.
The makeup is noticeably better. It's only been a couple years, but it must be budgetary. The makeup, it's subtle, but
certainly better than the fourth Doctor.
yeah, definitely. That's hard to watch. Even the seventh Doctor. By the time the seventh Doctor got around,
Yeah,
and there's
it's
a little
rough.
there's a little bit of footage of that
Very
too.
rubber masky.
Yeah, it really is, and I don't blame them. It's budgetary, and it was the 80s. I get it, but still,
Well,
it
the
was cool to
80s,
see.
the 80s, okay, the 80s had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it makes everyone look bad.
It was a little bit different.
I know it was, and it was a TV show that was getting canceled
Yeah.
pretty soon. Another Doctor in.
Anyway, the Davros thing is very cool. I love that they show and play clips from previous Dr. Davros conversations.
dig it.
Whenever they come together, usually they have some sort of philosophical discussion about the Daleks and whether or not they should be doing what they're doing.
Well, it is an interesting discussion, and at least this one puts it a little bit further away from, do I genocide the Daleks, which I think is a good idea,
Yeah.
and obviously the Doctor doesn't, to the point where, should you kill a child if you know for a fact it's going to be the most evil motherfucker in the universe?
Sure. He used to be the one advocating for, no, you should never ever kill anyone, no matter what. And that was, they played the fourth Doctor line. That's essentially that. And it's the same situation. It's just, would you kill a kid?
And now he's like 1,000 years older, and he's like, oh,
And
maybe
now he's
I
like,
should.
oh, I should. It's interesting. As character growth, it's a different place to take it. Now the Doctor has changed his position, and now Davros is basically rubbing it in his face. Like, I remember what you did to me. Do you not remember what you said? Like, hundreds of years ago? Look at this. So that's really cool.
Better conversation though is when Missy and Clara get trapped by the Daleks next to the TARDIS.
Sure.
And you kind of find out the plan, like they're gonna kill both of them and destroy the TARDIS, and that's like what's gonna happen, and the Doctor has to watch. And now Davros is sitting in there, and the Doctor begs Davros for the lives of his friends, obviously. After Missy gives a cool speech and gets shot.
Yeah, I like that Missy, right before she is about to get shot, flips and it's like, okay, Daleks, I'll work with you. Because that's what
Missy's.
the Master does.
Part of me thought that if that would have worked, she would have saved it, though.
Maybe.
Like, part of me, I don't know, just the way she did that seemed very manipulative towards the Daleks and not towards fuck you, Clara.
Yeah.
But it could have been. I have no idea. She's crazy. So, but Davros is sitting there after Missy gets shot. Clara's there, and obviously the Doctor's freaking out at this point because it's just Clara in a room filled with Daleks, no way to get into the TARDIS, and she's just standing there. And Davros has this really cool line. Look at them. They're just sitting there waiting. They like this part. This is the part that they're waiting for her to run because it just fuels them. This kind of fear that they instill and wanting to kill but having to wait and sort of waiting for the moment to pounce. And then he's like, this is just the most pure life gets.
I know.
That's so great.
We've talked about it before, but I think in the past couple seasons, the Daleks have been so overused and used incorrectly, and they're not threatening anymore.
Yeah,
at
they were
all.
just kind of used as Invasion Force X, or Base Under Siege.
In this episode, though, I think it might have even been the speech. I think it might have been what Davros
think
said
it
about
helped a
them and
lot.
analyzing the inner workings of the Daleks and what they might be thinking at the moment. It made them feel threatening again. I felt like, oh, wow, she is in a room full of danger. This isn't just, oh, she's going to Deus Ex Machina her way out of this.
Yeah.
And she does. She gets shot. Of course, I think she'll come back in the next episode in one way or another. But there was a threat. I think the way they're going to bring her back, by the way, either... A, there's going to be some time travel shenanigans, which the end of this episode alludes to, or B, Missy briefly mentions in the episode that the vortex manipulator that she is wearing is tied to Clara's, and it goes wherever she goes. So if Missy, for instance, teleported away just as she was getting shot, then Clara went too.
Right,
and that's what I think might happen. Though
but at the same time, they show the skeleton shot of when people get shot and killed by Daleks.
Yeah,
you know.
We'll see what happens.
I think it's gonna be timey-wimey, personally.
Sure.
Because at the end of this, although they blow up the TARDIS too, and then the Doctor at the end shows up back at where you see child Davros the first time, and he's like, "Hey, are you gonna help me?" Whatever. And then the Doctor is there without the TARDIS, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you didn't hear it.
I think here's what I think. First of all, I just got to say it bugs me that the Daleks, with no extra equipment, like 10 of them blew up the TARDIS. If they could do that, there was
a cannon.
Oh, there was a cannon. You're right. So maybe it was something they had invented. Sure, fine, whatever. I think the way the Doctor's going to get back sans TARDIS, assuming it did blow up, maybe it didn't, it'll be a camera trick. I think Davros is literally going to say, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to prove that you're no better than me. I'm dying anyway.
Could be.
Have this time vortex manipulator or whatever. Go back in time and kill me and stop the Daleks. I don't care. I'm just going to prove to you that you're no better than me. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, because that's kind of Davros's point.
Yeah.
And then the stinger at the end is the Doctor shows up and the kid's there and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to help me." And the Doctor said something
He
to
says,
the effect
I'm going to save my friends. And he yells,
he goes,
exterminate.
And he holds up what looks like a gun, but the Dalek gun from their arms. And then, cut. Which is a cool ending. I don't think the Doctor's going to kill the child.
I think we're supposed to think he's going to kill Davros, but what he's going to do, he's going to shoot the hands or do something and save Davros, and then I think he'll spend the episode trying to...
reconcile.
Yeah, trying to make him not the Davros that he becomes in the future. Overall, I thought this was one of the best first episodes of a season in a long time.
Oh, it was great.
It felt like... Interestingly, this felt like a Russell T Davies finale to me.
Yeah, it felt much more cliffhangery than, and this is probably due to the two-partness of it, but it felt like it had a much bigger scope. Like, this is how we're going to close out the season. And
the different locations, it kept jumping to different locations, different characters. It was beautiful. I love it. And sometimes Moffat has his shortfalls. I don't hate him or anything. Like I've said, I like Moffat. I like what he's done with the show.
He's good at building up and then letting us down.
Yeah, Moffat's really, really good with build-ups. I'm hoping if the second episode of this lives up and is at least as good as this, then this is like the best series opener, maybe of the whole new Who so far.
Probably.
It's just great. I'm a little afraid it's going to be... I felt this way with Dark Water, and then the second episode of that. I felt like the second episode let down the first episode and made the first episode not as good in retrospect because you knew it was kind of going for, it's all right, but it's not as good. But I'm really hoping this one builds up to something cool, something interesting, at least something not shit. Interestingly, in the next time, there's a trailer online. I think it was actually separate from the next time that was at the end of the episode. If you want to look it up, you can look it up. And it shows the Doctor grasping one of the tubes connected to Davros, and he starts turning regeneration gold on his hand. I think he's gonna save Davros and regenerate him, and maybe even make him not all fucked up anymore. Maybe turn him back into what he looked like when he was a human. Or not a human, I forget what it's called. The Thals? Something like that.
Interesting.
So that could be cool to see what happens. Either way, it looks like he's not going to let Davros die.
If you write in young, vibrant Davros, and so you can keep the Dalek thing kind of going, because obviously Daleks are classic, that'd be interesting, because it's always nice to have arch nemesis type characters with the Doctor.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be cool. It could be very cool. I just hope they don't bring more Daleks back for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I hope this is it.
Unless
there's
it's like a quick...
If there's like a group shot of villains or something at the end of the season for whatever reason, sure, great. I'm really wondering where the season's going to go. If we're opening with Davros, who's the big bad guy going to be at the end of the season?
I think we're going to Gallifrey.
I
finally,
think so too.
Because that's really where we have to go now. Like, there's really no other destination. And it will be interesting to see how they end the season, because at some point during this season, don't know when, could be in the Christmas special. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's during this season. Jenna Coleman's not going to be on Doctor Who anymore, which is going to be good because we need to move on. And I don't think she died just now, because that doesn't seem ceremonious enough at all. I would guarantee, I would bet a lot of money that she's back in next episode, along with Missy.
Seen her
and she's
footage of later episodes.
Yeah, but I think it'll be interesting. I think it might be around the Maisie Williams episodes.
Maybe.
Because
at least after
those titles are very interesting.
Yeah. So other than that, I think that's it. Very, very strong opener.
Yeah.
I really like where they're taking this. Capaldi's doing even better than he was before, and I thought he was doing a great job. I think the writings feels tighter than last season. I like that the two-parters are giving us some room to breathe and let it be a little indulgent, like the whole guitar scene. That couldn't have happened in a one-part episode.
I'm really digging the two-part. I actually hope they stick with it. Maybe you can do some one-offs during a season.
Sure.
But if you're only going to do 12-episode seasons, kind of like they've been doing, do two-parters. That's fine. I'm good with 6 stories that have like a thread that runs between them. If you're going to up it to like 16, maybe do 6 two-parters and like some one-offs in there. Because the one-off Monsters of the Weeks are kind of cool, but sometimes. It depends on what they are. Because like Mummy on the Orient Express is a really good example of that. Or Listen was really cool.
Sure.
So you can tell those short stories, which are interesting. But I really like the long, deep, character-driven narratives that we're getting so far. So I really hope that keeps up, because I don't want any fucking egg-hatching moon business this year, you know?
Yeah, so great episode. Glad the season's back. God, I really wish I didn't have to wait a whole week to watch more. I wish this came out like
We're
Netflix.
So spoiled.
I know. I wish I could watch them all in one sitting. It'd be great. But anyway, that is it for this week. I hope you guys will come back and join us for the rest of the season. Tell us what you thought about the episode in the comments, what you think's going to happen, any theories, whatever. Sorry this episode came out like a day or two after the episode. Normally we'll try and get it out the same day as the episode, if not the day right after. It's just that it was my girlfriend's birthday, so I had to do some stuff, and then I was busy the next day,
what
and I
a
apologize.
Bitch.
I know.
But yeah, so they should be out the night of, maybe right after it airs in the U.S., because we get these legally from BBC in Europe.
Sure, legally. Anyway, so thanks everyone. You can always check us out at The Real Unpop. I will try to get on there more often.
You should, because that's your job.
If I'd like to live tweet the show, but since we're watching it way before people in the United States are, so I don't want to spoil people.
Yeah. You can also subscribe and catch more of the Who Cares. If you haven't, you can catch last season's Who Cares right there at the clickety-clack.
You can always check us out on Patreon. We have a level for Patreon that lets you tell us what to review. And I guess if you wanted to do something Who Cares related, you could tell us a classic episode of Doctor Who, or an episode of New Who we haven't covered.
Or the movie, I guess we should do at some point.
I know, we'll do the Doctor Who.
We'll probably do that
movie
after the season, though.
I know, I want to talk about the Doctor Who movie, because honestly, there's some good stuff in there. So, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And this has been Who Cares?
With the Magician's Apprentice.
Yeah.